Okay, so you want to know the fastest way to get better at tennis, but you're not sure where to start? Well, hi there, I'm Jensen. I've been playing tennis for more than 10 years. I played in college as well as coached for over 3 years. And I love helping people understand tennis better, learn how to be better tennis players themselves. And I even started a business in the apparel side of things to create tennis and pickleball apparel. So, tennis has been my whole life, and today we're going to be reviewing Reddit threads to see how accurate the advice is, what my opinions are on it, and also at the end, I'm also going to include my top 3 tips for how to become the best tennis player you can, the fastest. Okay, let's get into it. I thought Reddit was a good place to start because you can get some really good advice on there, but sometimes people are just talking, out of their... Okay, so this was inspired by the question saying, what's the fastest way to improve in tennis? Now, they've been playing doubles 3 times a week for 7 months now, and I've seen little improvement. So I'm guessing I need to do something else. And they're asking which is the fastest way. Singles, just rallying practice, hitting against the wall. Okay, first of all, doubles, it is much harder, I would say, to improve your technique, your game, than if you were playing singles or just rallying with another person. And simply, it's math. If you're just playing with one other person, you don't have to cut the amount of times you're hitting in half. You get, in the full hour, you're hitting all of the balls rather than half, right? So ultimately, doubles is great. It's almost a completely different game than singles, to be honest. Obviously, a lot of techniques are same, but the strategy is completely different. So, yeah, so the first thing is I would say singles. I think you need to hit more with just one person so you can get the majority of the practice, get down your timing, your rhythm, everything, right? And then we'll go into more specifics about coaching and everything. Okay, now this is one of the top comments upvoted 46 times, and I see why, because I definitely agree with this. It says there's a big difference between just hitting balls and practicing. Once you can define this, you will see a big jump. This is absolutely true. I think it's a great way to put like fast. It's like saying you have to switch your mindset in order to become a better tennis player, and also adjust your expectations, right? So fast is all going to be up to you. For some people, fast is 5 years. For some people, fast is 3 months. So you just have to understand what your expectations are of yourself. With that said, if and we'll go into with my tips later as well, but if you want to be a really good tennis player, you have to act like the really good tennis players to become one, right? So one thing is that you can emulate the pros. So for example, a lot of the bigger names like Federer, Nadal, they've talked multiple times about going into each practice, or Serena, for example, going into each practice with one thing that you're going to focus on the entire time. That helps you not beat yourself up when things aren't going well, because when you learn a new skill, because tennis is so technical, you're not going to beat yourself up over it. Things are not going to go well. You're not going to win all the points. But if you're focusing on that one thing, that is your objective. That is what defines success or failure to you. So it's not as big of a deal, if you're not winning all the time. With that said, it also just allows you to really hone in on your weaknesses. So a lot of people would talk about Federer and be like, there's not one thing he's really good at, but he's not bad at anything either. And that was why he was such a big threat. Most people, when they're strategizing and playing against somebody, they look at their weaknesses and they adjust their plan accordingly. And that's not a bad way to go about it, but that's what made Federer so amazing and arguably the GOAT, is because he didn't really have any weaknesses, and so people couldn't pinpoint that, and so then it becomes a, he was controlling the point. Let's keep moving. The next one that was also voted 33 times, saying singles against somebody who is the same level or a little bit better. Absolutely, you should be trying to play with people who are better than you. I say finding a comparable hitting partner is also really important. There's a couple reasons why. One, the thing is, if you're comparable, and they can be a little better, a little worse, whatever. The thing is, if you play with somebody who's a lot better than you, you're going to be really frustrated and embarrassed, and you're not going to be focusing on the right things. I know, because I've done this, where especially when I first started playing, I was playing with people who were much better than me, especially when you make the jumps between, different types of training groups. And you just feel really intimidated the whole time, and sometimes you can step up to the challenge, but ultimately you're placing your focus on the wrong things. So finding somebody who's comparable, that's a big one. Also, if you are close in skill level, they are probably going to want to hit with you as well, and then all of a sudden your schedule becomes that much more open for hitting opportunities. Okay, next. This person said, do you know what you want to improve at? Are you making time to isolate skills? And says, are you recording matches and reflecting on what you learn? This is a big one. Okay, so not just playing matches, but actually learning from them. The way that everyone looks at it is a win feels great, but a loss is when you learn, right? So for me, I had a journal, and actually it's in Oregon. I moved to Texas, so that one's back in Oregon. But I did have multiple match journals that I had with me during practice, during matches, and then in the car afterwards, after matches. I would just be writing in them, and there's a few reasons why. Okay, because your memory fails you a lot of times. So if you want to really look at how you felt in the moment, use your journal and keep it in your bag. And make sure you have it to take notes during practice, because there are going to be things that your coaches say that you really want to remember and learn, and writing it down is going to help you so much. There's so many studies that say writing things down actually helps you remember. So write it down, look at it, and then also you can refer back to that during your matches. The next thing is that you're kind of, I don't want to say throwing your money away. I know matches are fun, blah, blah, blah. But if you're not learning from each time you lose, you're not really getting the whole point of playing in the first place. Because let me tell you, I went on the jump between challengers and champs and everything. You pretty much win a bunch and then you jump up, right? And then you go to the next and the next. So for me, it took multiple times losing challenger tournaments, and then I won 8 in a row, right? So it's you have to lose and lose and lose and learn each time to get to that point when you start winning. And that just is what it is. That's why it's tennis is this is the fastest ways, but ultimately it's going to be a long process regardless. A big thing that can help you though is recording your matches. Now, I wouldn't say, I don't know, some matches you're God, I don't even want to look at that. It's so disgusting and ugly. And I've been there as well. Sometimes those are the best ones to watch, because sometimes, well, one, ugly tennis wins sometimes, and I'm the worst of that. I don't like ugly tennis at all. You gotta do what you gotta do. But the other thing is that there's lots of things that you are feeling in the moment that kind of cast a shadow on what's actually happening in the moment, right? So you need to focus on taking yourself out of it, looking at those recordings as if it was another person, and then ask yourself the question, if this was another person, what would I tell them to do? If this was your teammate and you were watching this match as if it was them, what would you tell them? What would you say that they need to improve on, or that they weren't doing, and what strategy were they not implementing that would have helped them, right? Okay, so just look at that as take yourself out of it when you're watching your match. Don't focus on the outcome. Focus on, if this was another person, what would I say, right? Okay, moving on. I like these tips, by the way. The top voted ones are actually, they're good, but they're not specific enough, I think, to give you actionable advice and feedback, right? Okay. This is a longer one, but it's talking, so this guy's experience, he's a 3.0 player in his mid-40s. He's continuing to improve, and this is his cycle. Okay, so let's go over his cycle. So he takes a private lesson with Tennis Pro. Great. I will say, be careful with who you choose as a coach or a tennis pro. Some of them are amazing, and some of them are terrible. And yeah, that's just all I have to say. Be careful when you're choosing. He said try to focus on 1 or 2 strokes. It shouldn't be a buffet of instruction. I would say yes. However, sometimes in your first lesson with somebody, they might focus on a lot of things because you need help in a lot of areas. And they might be small tweaks that you can build up on. Let's say your forehand is mostly there and you need a slight tweak. You're not going to take the whole hour talking about your forehand when there was a slight adjustment you needed to make and you're making them every time, 10 times in a row. You're not going to spend the whole lesson talking about that. So yes and no. I see what he's saying. Definitely don't, if you're getting overwhelmed with instruction, then they're not the right fit, okay? Okay, he said, so you take a private lesson, then you're gonna book a ball machine for the next day. This is a great tip. Booking a ball machine for your next day is a great idea, and here's why. Ball machines don't have the same kind of like impact as like human error. So if you put them in the right area, they're gonna pretty much hit that spot exactly at the same time, or in the same way. So it's gonna help you do that repeating process. However, if you want to practice your forehand, let's say we're gonna take forehands as an example. If you want to train your forehand in a more like unstable setting where things and variable and things are changing, then a person's a better way to go. Because if you want to practice hitting your forehand the same way, whether it's in the back of the court or in the middle of the court or anything like that, you can do it with a ball machine, but with the person, they're going to have different spins and everything like that. It's going to help you adjust in a more match-like setting, right? Okay, then you book a match within a couple days of your ball machine session. If this were me, I wouldn't say a couple days. I would say back to back. The more hitting practice you get, the better it's going to be, especially if you already have the intention. And don't forget, perfect practice makes perfect, not just practice, okay? It has to be intentional practice. It has to be something that you're actually working towards. So this is a great little thing. I actually didn't hit with a ball machine much growing up. I almost always hit with another person. I can probably count on two hands how many times I've hit with a ball machine. And mind you, I've played for more than 10 years, and I also I don't even know if I could quantify how many forehands I've hit. But regardless, I play for like 6 hours a day, never with ball machine. So I think that there's a lot to be said about hitting with just another person. But if you can't find anyone, ball machine's great. But I don't think you necessarily have to take this exact cycle. I think the intention behind the cycle is good. So let's take a lesson, learn the new skill, then go and practice that skill on your own without the instruction. Oh, bonus tip, film yourself, okay? Third, then you go and book a match and you implement that skill. Repeat that every week and you're gonna be golden, you're gonna be accelerating, right? And the thing is, and what's great about tennis and also really frustrating is that there's always something to improve on, right? So as good as your forehand is right now, it can be better. As good as your backhand is, as good as your serve is especially, or your volleys, your timing can be better, your footwork, your everything, everything can improve. So that's the thing is you can repeat the cycle as many times as you'd like. Okay, moving on. Okay, this one's good, and I didn't see this initially when I was scrolling. So it's saying lessons with an ITF certified teaching pro. USTA teaching pro works as well. Also, you'll need to improve your overall fitness by adding in your own strength and conditioning program. Learn to diet and meal prep too. This is something I'm also going to be talking about in other videos. Nutrition and fitness are huge, and there is something I had no idea about when I was training to become a collegiate tennis player. And then for a lot of collegiate tennis players who are then maybe are at home and they're not on the meal plan anymore, maybe they don't have the team workouts, or maybe they've graduated, whatever it is, or if their school doesn't have a program for that, a lot of them are left in the wind, and then all of a sudden they're not training as much as they used to, let's say in juniors, and they're gaining weight, they're not as fast, they have lost muscle, they're not training. It's there's so many little things you need to pay attention to. Nutrition and diet is the base for all of that. You'll notice a crazy increase in your energy. For me, I was literally 100 pounds when I was trying to get recruited to play tennis, and mind you, right now, I'm 145. I'm 5'5", so I'm actually fairly short for a female tennis player, but much healthier, I have much more muscle mass now than I did back then, and I was very lean and skinny back then, and my main problem was I was getting pushed around a lot by the ball. So nutrition and diet and training, all of that, super important and not at all emphasized for tennis, it feels in comparison to basketball or football or any of these major programs. So that is something I'm going to go into in another video, but absolutely, if you want to improve your overall quality of life, learn about nutrition and fitness and all of that, and you'll be golden. Okay. Oh, And the other thing, there are some pros who are not good at teaching, and who might be certified by one of these major leagues and still aren't good. That just is what it is. There are also people who are not certified who are amazing coaches. And I'm not trying to qualify myself as that, but I was not a USTA certified pro because I was too young to be one. And then I did it in college as well. And the thing is, you kind of have to go by what people are saying, and that's a weird way to go about it. But if you're going to find somebody who's local to you and you're already in like a tennis community, ask around, because their reputation from people you know can often outweigh what it says. Just saying. Okay. This one is funny. It says buy a new racket. That's what's holding you back. Oh my gosh. The amount of times that people are like, I just need to buy a new racket because it's too heavy, it's too this, it's blah blah. And a week ago they were loving it. A week ago is their favorite racket. I've had friends who had their old racket, like they had like a set, they had, because when you're competitive, you have, 4, 5, 6 rackets at a time. Pros have 9, right? They would have like 4 rackets, mind you, that's like over $1,000 of equipment plus stringing. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty penny over here. They will scrap those, buy entirely new rackets, and then go back to their old ones. Because they liked it, they tried it, they bought a bunch of them, and then they went back. And it's normally not because of the racket, it's because of their superstition and because of however they thought they were playing. And like, it can be true, you can hit better with certain rackets, but if you have problems and you have like a decent racket, like, it's not the racket, babe. It's not. Because there are people who can hit with a Walmart racket. I think there is a difference. In fact, I know there's a difference between like a Walmart racket and like I'm a Babolat fan, okay? So between like my $200-something racket and like a $20 Wilson racket at Dick's, I know that the Babolat one is better construction-wise and material-wise and everything like that. Learn technique. Get into that first. And then maybe consider a racket. But invest in the technique and the coaching first, okay? Okay. This one, it says play twice a day, once drilling, flow hitting, highest volume possible, second time a best of 3. Oh, I see what it's saying. Okay, so it's saying, like, play twice a day, first drill, and then later in the day, go and play a match. It's fine. I know some academies do this. It's basically, like, it's combining the techniques of what we were talking about earlier into one day. But I think a lot of people get burnt out, and then I think that the implementation of the same thing over, let's say, an entire week is much more impactful than one full day of focusing entirely on it and doing it in multiple different, like lanes. So I think that instead, splitting it up is actually better. Now, I did have like 6-hour-long practice days, so I understand the importance of practicing sometimes for long amounts of time, both for building endurance and also implementing other things you practiced. And you can do match days and drills and everything in one day, but you don't need to split it up. You don't need to do 2 days. That's not possible. And also, for a lot of people, it's completely like impossible to do that with like their work schedule and everything like that and coordinating. So yeah, do play once a day. That's fine. Especially if you are someone who's older who's just trying to get better. You don't have to do 2 days. You're fine, babes. Just play, have an intention, and go about your day. Okay, so let's look for one more. Let's talk about this one because I think this is a good one to like kind of wrap it up before I get into my 3 tips, right? So lots of repetitions, not play. It's like someone feeding you balls, hitting on the wall. I don't think you need to hit on the wall really at all unless you're very, very early in your tennis career. If you really cannot keep a ball in play or anything, hitting a wall is fine. Because it'll let you, kind of get into just like the repetition of hitting a ball, maybe kind of working on your hand-eye coordination, everything like that. But if you're, a few years into your tennis journey, a wall, I wouldn't suggest it personally. I don't think it does much. And maybe I'd say the only time I've ever hit on a wall is when I was practicing my volleys. That's maybe the time, but even then, a person's better. Find your tennis people. Okay. Second says having specific technique, improvements in mind. Call it mindful practicing. We've talked about this a little bit. Absolutely have something in mind when you go to practice. Okay. Now the third one. This is why I wanted to pick this one. Focus on error reduction, not hitting winners, nothing wide, nothing in the net, get aggressive later. This is a really important point and something I'm actually going to go into in the next video as well. But it is far more important to be consistent than it is to be like a shock and awe player. Shock and awe players rarely win. And that is because in order to build a strategy, in order to implement a strategy and understand how to even have a strategy, you have to have mastered the basics first. You have to know, at least in a radius, like a semi-small radius, where your ball is going, to be able to predict what your opponent's going to do and then how you're going to set up the next thing. Most tennis players, it's like chess, where it's like the grandmasters can think 15 moves ahead. In tennis, I mean, most tennis players are thinking 3 to 4 shots ahead. So in order to understand all that, you have to know where your ball's going, and it has to be reliable. And that comes from practicing mindfully, knowing where your ball is going to go because you've hit it so many times. And then you can go into strategy, and then you can create something and not just be reactive. So playing like and just rallying with somebody, people are saying it doesn't work. Absolutely it does work. I don't want to hear it. Okay? You need to know where your ball is going. You need to work on consistency before you even try and hit the pretty winners. Okay? Okay. Now I'm off my Reddit soapbox. Let's go into my 3 main tips for how to get better at tennis the fastest way. Okay, number 1, you need to obsess. Now, if you want to be the best tennis player you can be and do it in a fast way, you need to act and behave and just breathe tennis in the way that good tennis players do. So in your circle, there's probably somebody you look up to. I want you to emulate them. I want you to watch the pros. I want you to, watch your matches, get the play in, do everything you can to become, the person that you aspire to be. That person who you see and you're like, I would really love to play like them, to beat them, anything like that. Emulate their routine. How are they taking care of their nutrition? How are they investing into their fitness? How are they learning different skills every day, every week to become a better tennis player? That's what you need to be, okay? So you need to obsess. Okay, second, practice, I would say, 5 to 6 times a week. These don't need to be super long hitting sessions, but getting the daily practice in is so important because technique comes and goes so easily, especially if you're implementing something new. To me, my ideal structure looks like this. You're going to have one match day. That's going to be at the end of the week. So just have that in mind. Your one match day is at the end of the week. Going up to that, you want to have one private lesson. And this kind of goes to that cycle that was mentioned in the Reddit, but one private lesson, maybe let's say on a Monday, that gets you in your headspace because you're coming off the match. Let's say you're taking that little nugget from that match and saying, this is what I needed to work on. This is what I was really struggling with. You take that to your private lesson. You work on that in your private lesson. You then spend 3 to 4 days focusing on drilling. However, the drilling will be specific in different areas. You're going to work on each area during a drill. And then you're going to combine that with like point play. But it'll be incorporating drills. So let's say, for example, like a lot of people say, oh, you can't do any points at all. You have to just drill. That's absolutely not true because you need to take the drilling and implement it in a way that makes you feel the pressure from matches so you can kind of go in baby steps, right? So an example of this, let's take the forehand example from before. If you're practicing cross-court forehands, you can say, okay, for the first 4 shots after the serve, or after the feed, you have to make it in this area and say, beyond the service line, cross court. Okay, so now you're being specific. Now you're giving them a square area, right? It has to hit that 3 or 4 times, and then you can start the point. So you're still doing points, but you're taking that drill and putting it into match play scenarios so they can see, then your players start to see, okay, when I implement this strategy, when I go cross court, this sets me up for a ball in the middle that I can then go down the line on, right? So that's kind of what you're working on. You're taking those drills and putting them in a more competitive landscape, and then players are more easily able to recognize the patterns and put them into their match play that happens at the end of the week. So I would say, take a day off one of these days. Doesn't matter which day, you can take it. You can have your match day, then take a day off, then go to your lesson. If it were me, I would have my match day and my private lesson back to back, personally. So I would have match play on Sunday and go to my private lesson Monday. That's a great way to go about it. You're not going to forget about things as long as you journal them and you have everything taken care of. You'll be good. And I think that's the best way to go about it, okay? However, some people need the rest. They're like, I'm sore from matches, whatever. Just take your rest day in some point that makes the most sense to you, and then play the rest of the days. So, okay, that encapsulates what my ideal schedule would be like for people who I've coached, and also for even myself and things I did growing up. This is how it was structured, okay? Also, if you are already in tournaments, this is pretty much that exact schedule. You're drilling for most of the time. You have your private lesson once a week, and then you have your tournament, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or just Saturday, or just Saturday, Sunday. Depends, but it'll be the weekend, so it's about 1 to 2 match days a week, right? Okay. So that encapsulates that schedule. Now, the third one, and this is really important, and that is to be coachable and open to feedback. You will be so surprised the amount of people who say they want to get better, and then when you tell them things that they don't want to hear and things that they need to do that will absolutely improve their game, they refuse to do them. It's almost always revolving around ego, and it's hilarious because there are people who, haven't played much tennis before. They don't really fully understand the game, but they don't want to look silly. They don't want to feel like they're dumb. They don't want to do the things that they're getting to do to get better. So that is another one, is just to be open to feedback and actually seek out feedback. Not even just being open to it, but actively seek it out. So when it comes to your coaches, when it comes to people who you admire, who are better than you, if they see you playing, ask them, hey, I'm doing X. I'm hitting my forehand long by 3 feet every time I step out wide for a ball. What can I do to help me get this? And they'd say, well, are you going for too much? Are you actually on the defensive, but you're hitting like an offensive ball? And you go, I guess I was too scared to hit something that would neutralize the ball because I didn't want to have someone hit a winner. And they'd say, well, isn't hitting one ball better than, and getting them to hit one more ball back better than you just hitting it out? And you'd say, that's a good point. Okay, that's an example. This is a little conversation I've had. So there's little things like that. If you actively seek out the feedback, you're going to get much better, much faster, because you're learning. You're curious. That is it. Be curious and open and coachable. That is the best advice I can give to anybody in any sort of walk of life, is to be curious and be coachable, because the right coaches will see that and they will seek you out and they will make you their little mentee and they will help you get better. That is what happened to me. I started playing tennis really late in comparison to everyone else I knew. I started playing at 12, and if you are anywhere in collegiate tennis, that's like, they're like, oh, are you dead? Because that's way too late. You are a grandma at that point if you were playing tennis at 12. Almost everyone I knew started playing at 4 years old, so they had already had 8 years on me. Imagine 8 years of anything. That's a lot of practice, right? So 8 years of me when I first started playing, picked up a racket. So, but my one thing is I wanted to get really good, and I was really curious. I soaked up feedback. I asked everything. I asked about everything. I said, oh, well, what about this? What if I do this? This is happening to me. How can I change this? What do you think? That was my biggest thing. I said, what do you think I'm doing wrong? What do you think I can change? What would you have done in this match? That is the best way. Okay, because here's the thing. If you are open to accepting feedback, you are open to accepting other people's points of views, and other people's points of views will help you become a better player, because you are not just relying on yourself to see things. And that is me. Okay, getting off my soapbox now. That was really passionate, but it's how I feel. I've had to deal with a lot of people who are not coachable, because I've coached the ages anywhere from 5 to 16, and actually some older people as well, but that was my main range, was kids. And some of them are very not coachable, even though they've expressed that they want to get better. So if you want to get better, be coachable. That's all I can say. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you like any more tennis-related content, nutrition content, fitness content around being an athlete and specifically a tennis player, let me know down below or leave them in the comments. I'm really excited to hear what you guys think. I think this is a cool idea. And also, I'm going to be talking about another Reddit thread I'll be reviewing and talking about soon. So look at Love Hate Athletica, both on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Thank you so much. Okay, bye.